Welcome to 21st Sports preview for the Arizona Cardinals at the Carolina Panthers, as they're going to be going at it in the NFC Championship game, and that'll be played January 24th, 2016. But we're going to go over some numbers, and we're going to give our analysis and give a prediction for the game. So we have the Cardinals and the Panthers, who did not face off in the regular season, but they did face off last year in the playoffs. That was in the wild card round. The Panthers won that one pretty handily, 27-16, although the Cardinals did lead that game by 1 point at halftime, 14-13, but Arizona was without Carson Palmer in that game. They also didn't have their rookie David Johnson as the running back, and the Panthers actually set a record for the least yards allowed by a team in a playoff game, as they totally shut down the Cardinals' offense, as Ryan Lindley was under center for that game, and he ended up only netting 51 yards passing, and on the ground, the Cardinals only had 27 yards combined. So the Panthers' defense really shut down the Cardinals on offense last time around, but of course, as I said, the Cardinals didn't have their star quarterback, who led them to some pretty impressive numbers in the regular season here in 2015. Let's actually look at those numbers for both teams. Of course, the Panthers 15-1 in the regular season. They only lost one game. Of course, that was to the Falcons, who they faced twice, and they split the season series. And the Cardinals were 13-3. They only lost 3 games. And of course, the Cardinals' 3 losses were to St. Louis in Week 4, to Pittsburgh in Week 6, and then at home against the Seahawks in Week 17. So 2 losses actually came at home, and just 1 loss on the road for Arizona in 2015. And the Panthers, their 1 loss was on the road as well, as I said, to the Falcons. But looking at the numbers for these two teams, you have one of the best defenses in the league against one of the best offenses, and the Cardinals' defense ain't too bad either. But when it comes to offense, the Cardinals were first in yards during the regular season and second in scoring. Arizona averaged 30.6 points per game. And that was second, but the Panthers, they were 11th in yards, but number 1 in scoring, is they averaged 31.2 points per game. So they're the only team to put more points on the board per game than the Cardinals was the Panthers. When we look at the offense and the offensive production for both these teams, and through the air, the Cardinals were second and 8th in yards on the ground. The Panthers were 24th in yards through the air and second in yards on the ground. So, interestingly enough, the Cardinals, the second-ranked passing offense against the Panthers' second-ranked rushing offense. Of course, they're not going to be going against each other, matching up on the field. They'll be going against each other's defenses. And when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, for the Panthers, they are number 1 in the NFL in yards allowed, and they're 4th in points allowed, as they only allowed 18.5 points per game. And the Cardinals, they were 9th in yards allowed and 10th in points allowed, as they allowed just 19.7 points per game. And when it came to defense against the pass, the Panthers were 11th in yards allowed, and the Cardinals were 8th. And on the ground against the rush, the Panthers were 4th in yards allowed, and the Cardinals were 6th. We also look a little deeper into the numbers on defense, and for the Cardinals, they had 36 sacks. The Panthers had 44 sacks. And interceptions, the Panthers were number 1 in the NFL with 24 interceptions. The Cardinals, they had a lot of interceptions as well. They were 4th in the league with 19 interceptions, and both teams had 4 pick sixes, so 4 touchdowns returned off of interceptions for each of these two teams. And when it came to fumbles, the Panthers were number 1 in the league with 22 forced fumbles, and the Cardinals were tied with them with 22 forced fumbles as well. But the Cardinals returned 2 of those fumbles for touchdowns. The Panthers did not return a fumble for a touchdown during the regular season. But overall, Carolina was plus 20. They were the number 1 team in turnover differential, and the Cardinals were plus 9. They were 4th in the league in turnover differential. But the Panthers are the best when it comes to forcing turnovers and in terms of protecting the ball. They did a good job at protecting the ball. And they also, both these teams do a pretty good job at protecting their quarterbacks. Is the Cardinals were 4th in the league in sacks allowed, with just 27 sacks allowed, so they don't let people get to Carson Palmer. And the Panthers were 12th in sacks allowed, allowing 33 sacks. And when it came to QB hits, the Panthers allowed just 61 QB hits, but the Cardinals, although Palmer wasn't sacked too many times, he did get touched a lot, as they had 103 QB hits allowed. So 103 QB hits allowed by the Cardinals, just 61 QB hits by the Panthers allowed. So Cam Newton really not getting hit, and Carson Palmer gets rid of the ball, but he does take the hit. Of course, Jared Allen's not going to be playing in the game, but you got to remember the Panthers defense was already playing at a high caliber before Jared Allen came over before the trade deadline. So they had already won, I think, 9 games in a row going back to last season, not even including that playoff game, 10 if you include that wild card game where they beat the Cardinals before having Jared Allen come over on the defense. And yes, he did bolster the defense, and he obviously had an impact, but they were already playing at a really high level, and he actually only recorded 2 sacks during the time he played with the Panthers. But let's look at some more numbers here. And the Panthers, they only lost 1 game, and in that loss, they allowed 20 points, and they only scored 13 points. So a touchdown difference there. But in their 15 wins, the Panthers averaged 32.4 points per game, and they only allowed 19.2 points per game. So this is a difference of 13 points. It's almost 2 touchdowns difference in their wins. So they put up a lot of points. They don't allow a lot of points. They did play 1 overtime game. That was against the Colts, and they did win that game. Arizona also 1-0 in overtime. Of course, their lone overtime game came against Green Bay last week, an exciting playoff game that was. But we look at their 3 losses, and in their 3 losses, they allowed 28.3 points and only scored 13.6 points. So when they lose pretty bad, as they end up losing by about 2 touchdowns, a little over 2 touchdowns to be exact, but they let up 4 touchdowns, 28 points, where on the other side, Carolina only let up 20 points in their 1 loss. When you look at the 13 wins for the Cardinals, and they averaged 34.4 points in their wins and allowed just 17.5 points in those wins. So they scored nearly twice as many points when they won. And so if you can score twice as many points as you allow, you will win. And you'll win pretty handily. Is the Cardinals, when they won, it usually was by a pretty wide margin. So they had some pretty big victories, as did the Carolina Panthers as well. But we look at the defensive breakdown on 3rd downs. We'll also look at the offense too. And when it came to stopping teams on 3rd down, the Cardinals were 8th in the league. They only allowed 36% conversions on 3rd down. So the Cardinals get teams off the field. They make the stops on 3rd down. But Carolina, surprisingly enough, was just 24th in the league in 3rd down defense, allowing 58% conversion rate on 3rd down. So they let teams convert on 3rd down, which is surprising with how good their defense is, that they allow so many, 3rd down conversions. And we look at the offense. on third down. The Cardinals are third with 47% conversion rate on third down. And Carolina, they're seventh with 42%. So both teams successful on the offensive side of the ball on third down. And that's going to be something to watch because the Cardinals, with such a strong offense, they're going to need to convert on third down, and the Panthers are going to have to get them off the field. But they struggle to do that. Of course, they do make big plays down in the red zone to stop teams from putting up points, but they tend to let up some third down conversions. And we look at fourth down, and when it comes to the defense, the Panthers are actually better when it comes to fourth down than they are at third down, as they allow just 44%. They're 10th in fourth downs allowed to be converted. And the Cardinals, they're 13th with 47% allowed on third down. And on offense, the Cardinals are 50%. They're 15th in the league. And Carolina, they're 23rd in the league at 44%. So those numbers kind of match up a lot more closely there. But the real weakness for the Panthers is on defense on third down. They have trouble getting off the field. And I know that might surprise some people, but that is the numbers. So we look at the kickers for these two teams. And this game, it's very evenly matched. These are two really tough teams. And the Panthers, they're more of a running team. So they get that strong running attack, but they've been getting it done through the air as well. And both teams have a really good defense. The Cardinals, they got a phenomenal passing attack, but they also can get it done on the ground, as they were doing with Chris Johnson and then David Johnson once he took over the starting role out of the backfield for Arizona. But their defenses, both of their defenses are really top-notch. And so this game could come down to the kickers. And we look at the kickers for both these teams. Carolina is tied for first in touchbacks with 69 touchbacks during the regular season. Arizona just 50 touchbacks, and that was good for 9th overall in the league. And now let's look at the field goals. And when it comes to field goal percentage overall, Arizona's 7th with 90%, and Carolina's 19th in the league with 83%. Now, when it comes to the short field goals, just 29 yards or less, both teams are 100%. But then when you go to the 30 to 39 yards, Arizona is one of 20 teams that's 100% from that range. But Carolina, in the 30-yard range, they're actually 31st in the NFL with just 80%. So that's a little bit of a weakness for the Panthers there. Surprisingly so, too, because Graham Gano is one of the better kickers. But these are the numbers. And you look at the kicks, 40 to 49 yards. Arizona's 6th with 86%, 6 out of 7. And for Carolina, they're 13th with 81%, 13 out of 16. So again, you see, when it comes to the field goals, that could be what could win it for the Cardinals. But when it comes to 50-plus yards, that's where the Panthers actually take the edge with their 22nd at 50%. Graham Gano 2 for 4 from 50-plus. But Arizona, Chandler Camptanzaro is 0 for 2. He has not made a 50-plus yard field goal, as the Cardinals are one of just 2 teams in the NFL that has not made a field goal from 50-plus yards. And if you couldn't have guessed it, the other team is the Cleveland Browns. But let's look at the extra points. And when it comes to extra points, these teams are pretty good, although they do fall on the lower end. But 17th in the league for Carolina, 24th in the league for Arizona. But the Panthers 95% in extra points, and the Cardinals 91%. So it's possible that could end up affecting the game as well. And Carolina, though, they actually had 1 extra point blocked and 4 field goals blocked, whereas Arizona did not allow any of their kicks to be blocked when it came to field goals or extra points. Well, let's look at the special teams, though. When it comes to kick returns, Arizona's 15th in the league, averaging 24.1 average yards per kick return, and Carolina is just 32nd. They're the worst team in average kick return yards, averaging just 18.5 yards per kick return. But they still are the number one team when it comes to putting points on the board. And actually, Arizona is one of just 5 teams with a touchdown off of a kick return. So only 5 teams have a touchdown off a kick return. Arizona happens to be one of them. And then we look at the punt returns. Neither team had a touchdown on a punt return, but Carolina actually, they do better on the punt returns than they do on the kick returns, as they're 11th in the league with an average of 9.4 yards per punt return, and the Cardinals are 24th with an average of 7.4 yards. So Carolina averages 2 more yards per punt return. Then we look at the punts, and when it comes to punting, there's actually, the Panthers are 21st and the Cardinals are 29th, but that's actually a good thing, because that means they don't really punt a lot, is the Panthers had only 70 punts during the season, and the Cardinals only 60 punts. So 10 less punts for the Cardinals, is they don't really punt a lot, is they happen to, stay on the field, they keep their drives going, and their drives usually end in a score one way or another. Whereas Carolina, they're pretty good at extending their drives as well and getting some kind of points on the board, but they do punt it every now and then, and they punt a little bit more than the Cardinals. But we look at the average yards per punt, and the Panthers are 14th with an average of 45.4 yards per punt. The Cardinals are 30th with 42.2 yards per punt. And when it comes to the net yards per punt, Carolina is 17th with 39.8 net yards per punt. And the Cardinals are the worst team in the NFL when it comes to net yards per punt, which is 35.4. And that could come into play in the game, because that means that the Panthers will have better field position, and when their defense gives them that good field position and ends up stopping the Cardinals, and then their punter is not able to put them further down the field, then that can result in points for Carolina. Of course, they got to get it under 30 yards. They don't want to get in that 30 to 50 range, as Graham Gano struggles there. But when it comes to punts inside the 20, both these teams kind of struggle to pin teams against their own end zone, as the Cardinals were 24th with just 22 punts inside the 20, and the Cardinals were 29th in the league with just 20 punts inside the 20. Of course, they didn't have a lot of opportunities to do that, as the Cardinals, they had 20 out of 70, and the Cardinals had 22 out of 60, so that's how the special teams breaks down, and that's all the numbers right there. So it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Both these teams seem to be teams of destiny, as they both put up phenomenal seasons. I mean, they've been playing at an exceptionally high rate on both sides of the ball, both these teams, and it's really tough to pick either one, because I could easily pick either team. They're just that good, and on both sides of the ball, and I can find reasons to go with either one of them. The Cardinals have been playing at such a high caliber on offense. They move the ball really well. They put points on the board, and their defense does a good job of stopping teams. But the Carolina Panthers, they're just more balanced when it comes to their offense. They might not be, their passing game isn't as high-powered as, say, the Cardinals, but they actually have been doing a good job when it comes to passing the ball. Cam Newton's having a phenomenal year. He's definitely leading the race for the MVP, and they've been getting it done on the ground, and that's the thing. They have a more traditional offense where they set up their passing game with their running game, and the real secret of their success on offense is their offensive line. Their offensive line has been doing a phenomenal job. They really win that battle of the trenches, especially coming off the ball. They get a good push. They open up the holes in the rushing game. They protect their quarterback when they're passing. And of course, Cam Newton is very mobile. He can avoid the pass rush as well. But they're just so good when it comes to blocking that's a huge advantage for the Panthers against the Cardinals. And the Cardinals, I mean, they play phenomenal on defense as well. But the Panthers defense, the way that they are able to take those opportunities and they force the turnovers and then they get points on the board, whether it's putting in the end zone themselves or setting their team up for a scoring opportunity, they make sure to turn turnovers into points. The Cardinals do that as well, but the Panthers actually do a little bit better job when it comes to protecting the ball on offense. And now with John Stewart coming back, he had that huge game last week against the Seahawks, put up over 100 yards. And you saw they came out in that one. They came out firing strong. Of course, in that second half of the game, the Seahawks made it somewhat interesting. I mean, they made it come down to that onside kick at the end there. I don't expect this game to go that way. I think it's going to be a tight game throughout. And that's going to be kind of a wake-up call for the Panthers, the way the Seahawks were able to come back on them there. Of course, like I said, they were kind of, let up somewhat, up 31-0 at halftime. They'd kind of already won the game. They really had won that game within the first 3.5 minutes. But it's going to take a full 60 minutes, regardless, from both these teams, whoever comes away the winner. And this one, I wouldn't be surprised to see it go into overtime, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see the Panthers come out with a real dominant performance, because they just have been a team that's just been playing at the highest level of any team all year long, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But like I said, in the trenches on offense, that's really where they're very dominant. And that's the key to football, is your offensive line and in the trenches. And that's why I got to go with the Panthers in this game. Although it wouldn't be shocking to see the Cardinals pull off it would be an upset, being that it's in Carolina and they've only lost one game all year. But I wouldn't be shocked to see it happen, just because the Cardinals have been a team that has been building for a while now. This team has been really good for the last 2-3 years, and they're so close. They're like right on the verge of being a Super Bowl champion. Will that happen this year? If it doesn't, I expect them to be right back in the mix of things next year with all the talent they have. But they are, missing the Honey Badger, and I think that's going to kind of hurt them in this game. So the Panthers, they don't have Jared Allen, but he's not as integral of a part of that team. The heart and soul of their defense, is Kuechly, Davis, and Norman, and they've got plenty of talent up front on that line. They were already pretty solid before Allen came in, and he was just kind of like a bonus. I mean, like a really nice bonus to have. He's an all-pro player, but I think the Panthers, with that offensive line, I think that's where they win the game. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good week and had a great day and are having a great weekend. And enjoy all the sports.